Hello everyone, this is Crystal and welcome to my channel where I share card making techniques, sweet paper crafts, and now amazing food ideas. And today I have got another embossing folder technique to bring to you, which is called a tarnished metal technique. And for this technique I am using the same unicorn embossing folder that I used in my last video. Middle granddaughter is having a birthday too, which is the sister of the one I made the other one for. And they both like unicorns, but they couldn't have exactly the same card. So this one I made for her. This technique is very easy and extremely fun to make. So stay tuned as I teach you how you too can make the same type of card using any embossing folder. So here I'm starting off with my embossing folder, and I've also got a piece of gold metallic cardstock. It's poster board that I cut down because it's cheaper, and I keep it in my stash all the time. So I kind of put it in the center, kind of centerizing the design there, and run it through my big shot. And this is what it looks like. It's pretty this way, but let's change it up. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my Stays On black ink, and I'm just going to rub across it, trying to hit the highlights or the ridges of the embossing folder. Now you don't have to do this step first. You can wait and do it at the end, because sometimes you cover up enough of the black that you might want to do it again. So anyway, I went over it, and then I tried to get some of the extra ink off, but it won't. But that's okay. And before you do the next step, you need to make sure that it is completely dry. So I took my heat gun, and I went over it to make sure that it was completely dry. Because if you don't, all your embossing is going to stick to it. So then I took my Versamark ink and went over it. Just blotched it in places here or there, and I took some red embossing powder and I just dabbed over it. And you see, I got a little bit more stuck to it than what I wanted. So what I did is I just started scraping some of it off, because you don't want the whole thing covered, and I put too much ink on there. Either that or my black ink may not have been dry all the way either. But anyway, I just kind of brushed some of it off because it was just entirely too much. And you also may want to use your embossing buddy, which I didn't do. So now I'm taking and I'm heat embossing it, just melting all that embossing powder on it. And it gets really hot, especially on the metallic paper. So usually I have a small paper clothespin that I attach to the card, and I hold on to it with that so I don't burn my fingers. But when I was filming this video, I couldn't find it, so anyway, I just kind of had made do with it the way it was. So this time I'm taking my embossing buddy over it, just to make sure the ink doesn't stick to different places that I don't want it to stick to. And now I'll take my ink pad and I just kind of dab it in different places. I don't want to cover the whole thing, but just kind of dab it here and there. And then I took some like aqua color blue embossing powder. You can use any kind of embossing powder you have. Just use several that are different than contrast. So, and then another tip here is to make sure you put up your embossing powder before you turn the heat gun on. I didn't do it the first time around, and I blew embossing powder all over my workstation, and I'm still cleaning up the mess from it. So a good tip is to always do that. And now I'm taking the heat gun over it again, trying to heat it up. And it still doesn't look like much. And now I'm taking my embossing buddy over it again. And then I'm going to take my Versamark ink And I'm going to go over it again in different places. And this time, I think what I have is copper that I'm going to be using. So I did a red, I did a blue, and now I'm doing a copper. So I'll kind of brush that on and see what it looks like. And that kind of tones it down just a little bit. I kind of like to start with my bright, vivid colors and then go with my darker colors on top, just in case it needs toned down some. So I'll go through here and the heat gun, and I'll melt down more of the embossing powder. And another thing too, you want to make sure that you let the card cool completely down before you add another layer or do anything to it, because you could scrape that soft embossing powder right off, and then you'll have nothing but a big mess. And if you get it on your fingers, it'll stick to your fingers and it'll burn, and that's not very fun. So I'm taking it again, the embossing body over it, and taking more VersaFine ink pad over, not VersaFine, Versamark. And now I'm adding gold embossing powder over it. And then I'll heat it up again after I get it all done here. But you know, just add different layers. And the more you add to it, the richer I think the card gets. And it's fun to experiment. I mean, no two cards will be exactly the same when you use this technique. That's kind of why I like this, because I don't know exactly how it's going to end up, but you know, hey, that's the beauty of doing this technique. And then I decided I'd taken out too much of the blacks. Well, I'm taking my Stays On Black ink and I'm kind of putting some black back into it because I think I had covered most of it up. So I'm trying to give it, you know, a little bit more dimension. And so I just kind of took it over it. And then I'll take my heat gun and I'll heat it up again just to make sure that it's good and dry. And another tip that I did, I wanted my unicorn to be black. I wanted it to stand out more. So I took my black alcohol marker and I colored it, and I colored in a little more of the other raised areas on the card to give it more dimension, because I felt that the unicorn just kind of blended in and I didn't want him completely to blend in like he did. And then I took my same happy birthday die and I cut out in black cardstock and I glued it to the front of the card, which I thought it looked all right, but I came back to it the next day. I thought it needed something. I thought the card looked so nice, but I wasn't happy with the happy birthday. I thought it was just too plain for the rest of the card. So I changed it up. And of course I'm doing it backwards, how it should have been done, but anyway, I learned from my mistakes, so you can learn from them too. What I did is I cut out a whole bunch more happy birthdays, as you see, and then I took my art glitter glue and I glued them on top of each other to make them thicker so it would stand out, because I thought the happy birthday had no dimension and was too plain. And if I now thinking back, I might have embossed them differently than what I did, but hey, I'm showing you what I did do on it. So anyway, I just took my art glitter glue and I just kind of traced all over it, and then I glued several on top of each other. I think I glued like 6 on top of each other because I wanted it nice and thick, and you know, I wanted, you know, to have a dimension. And with the art glitter glue, it allows you to move it around to get it exactly in place where you want it. And press it down. I pressed it down on the paper really good and then picked it up because I don't want it sticking to the white paper. And I repeated this step, I think 5 or 6 times. I don't remember exactly how many times, but it was quite a few. So what I did is I took my Versamark ink, Versamark ink, and I went all over it the happy birthday, and I made sure I did it on another piece of paper. And then I switched the papers out because I don't want my embossing powder to stick to what's on that paper there. I didn't want to waste it. So I switched them out back and forth, and I poured clear embossing powder on it, which it doesn't look clear, it looks white, but it tell you it's clear. I have this great big jar, and it's super fine. I have a thick embossing powder, but I wanted a clear, even glossy look, and you can't get that with the chunky, but you can get it with the fine embossing powder. And then I took it and put it back on the paper that I used for the ink, and I went over it with my Doris embossing heat gun that Edith sells in her store, and boy does it heat up really fast. And I used the tweezers there to keep from burning my fingers, and then I happened to notice a couple of places that I missed. So anyway, I let it cool down, and I repeated this step I think like 3 times because I wanted to have an even glossy look on it. I wanted it to look like black glass on there. And now I'm adding my glue to the back of the happy birthday, and I'm adding it all over because I want to glue this to the stack of the happy birthday that I have already made. If I was thinking clearer, I would have just added the embossed the top one of the stack instead, but I didn't. So anyway, so I'm going to have to glue this one and add it to the stack of one that I have. And then after I do that, I'm going to glue the back of that, and I'm going to glue it onto the card itself, on the happy birthday that's on it. And then I just trimmed it down a little bit, and I put it on a black cardstock and popped it up with some foam tape. And then I thought it was good to go. So anyway, that's my card for today. I hope you guys liked it. Thanks for spending time with me. If you like what you see, please give me a thumbs up, and please subscribe to my channel and click that little bell so you'll be notified every time I upload a new video. Oh, and this embossing folder is available for a limited time at scrapbookingwithme.com. So I'll leave the link below in case you would like to purchase it. But bye for now. Happy crafting!